It's Heroes for Sale. It is podcast number 55, and the commander is at the helm. Sue Colson come in from HQ. How's it all going there?
Hello, lovely. Nice to be back. It's quite fun getting to do this while Stu's away.
Did you get much feedback from Stu? Because if you're listening to this and you don't normally listen to the podcast, Stu normally does it with me. He's very much a sci-fi buff. And last episode, there was a lot of swords and fur diapers and chainmail bikinis and things like that because it was very much a fantasy episode. Did you get much feedback from Stu on the last episode?
Listen, look, he's coming around. Like I've said it before. Jeff Johns in Doomsday Clock, he had Dr. Manhattan say this thing, like he was fighting all the magical people from DC, and Dr. Manhattan, he kind of stops there as they're using magic, and he goes, "Oh, I get it. You're using the leftover remnants from the Big Bang. That's what magic is." So he kind of validated it as a magic and fantasy kind of as a sci-fi thing, and it kind of bridged and worked as a marriage counselor for me and Stu because I'm so fantasy. So he did say, "What's with all the fantasy?" He had a little bit of a, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing these podcasts. It's too fantasy." And I said, "Well, it's still science. It's just that leftover remnants." He didn't like that.
Well, I think I mentioned it to you a while ago. There's a book series I read. The first one's called The Sky Stone, and it was written by a guy called Jack White, a Scottish guy.
Yeah.
And it was the retelling of the Arthurian legend, basically.
Yeah.
But from a historical fiction point of view, and he kind of rationalized it all and put it all together as how he thought it might have happened. And the Merlin magic isn't magic. It's stuff that we recognize today, but in those days wasn't common knowledge. It had come from the things that he appropriated had come from some Egyptian guys that turned up on the island and no one else understood them, and he did, and therefore it was magic.
Yeah, because it was unexplained at the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Magic. That's magic. Exactly. 100%. 100%. All right. Now let's get into it because we have we're doing 2 new comic books and we're doing 2 graphic novels today. Yes. And I want to start with this one. Because this is something I didn't know was happening. I knew Miss Marvel, right? I've watched the TV show. I've never read Miss Marvel comics, but the new Miss Marvel, the new mutant. So she's not only a superhero and she's been in the Avengers, but now she's part of the X-Men. When did this happen? How did this happen? I read the book. I liked the book, but I was like, hang on, this is all news to me. Where did it come from?
So before we go into it, without knowing all the history of it and how she's come about, did you find the book readable? Did you understand it? You didn't feel left out?
I didn't feel left out. No, I did understand. I mean, you can pick it up, right? You can pick it up and you can start piecing it together, but there are still gaps. Yeah. But then I figure once I've read 2, 3, 4, 5, those gaps will get filled in for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought they did a really good job of just including everyone because it is a number 1. So Ms. Marvel was killed in Amazing Spider-Man number 25. I think it was Amazing Spider-Man 26, maybe. And she got brought back to life, reincarnated by the X-Men because she actually has always apparently had the mutant gene in her. So this incarnation of Ms. Marvel, the X-Men have been driven underground and she is now working for them, and she's gone undercover at a high school where AUKUS they've got a secret lab under the college. Now, AUKUS was the group that they massacred the mutants. And there's been this whole big Hellfire Gala and Fall of X. All of that's been going on in the universe. And what Marvel are doing is they're actually bringing together X-Men and Avengers and all the superheroes in the Marvel universe, and they're doing it with Ultimate Invasion, and this is kind of feeling a little bit like that, where they're kind of trying to make them all part of the whole universe, and they can drop in and out of each other's stories. Is how it feels that that's what it feels like they're trying to do. So this Ms. Marvel was written by a mum who did the TV series, one of the TV series, and so she's kept in the feel of Marla Khan, Ms. Marvel, as being family orientated, surrounded by a supportive, loving family, and her best mate, and she's separated her from them in a way by sending her off to do this spy work at the school. And I thought that was really cool. But because of all the different aspects that make up Miss Marvel, her mutant gene is not detectable. So Orcus don't know that she's there. So that was kind of the history of it, a little bit of does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because that happens from time to time. But the whole X-Men Fantastic Four and that versus, say, Spider-Man and the Avengers and things felt like they were two separate universes for a long time.
Yeah.
Now it feels like they're trying to rationalize it all into one. Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, because Hickman he split it. I don't know did you read House of X, Powers of X?
No, I didn't. No.
So this was when we were still up in the K Road shop. So this was 6 years ago. Jonathan Hickman did this whole 12-part miniseries, House of X, Powers of X, and they're coming out at the same time. And what he was doing was reimagining the X universe. And it was basically the mutants were saying, we've had enough of dealing with the stupidity of humans. We are superior to humans, but they don't treat us well. They hunt us down. We don't want a part of it. And they went off to Krakoa, and they had their own Krakoan island, and they just wanted to be kind of apart from humanity. This is really brief rundown, but it was a really strong reimagining of the whole X universe, and it separated it even more in my eyes. It felt like completely different universe to, Captain America and everything, although there's still that bit in it. But so what this feels like they're trying to do now is actually break down that separateness and bring it all together. And Ms. Marvel is kind of like, she's that embodiment of the whole thing, because she's not completely mutant. She's just part mutant. And she's so strong and powerful with everything that makes her up. She's kind of a whole universe in herself.
I was going to say, somebody put up a map, and it was on I'm trying to remember now. It was a Facebook page, a comic-related Facebook page, and it was basically just a comment, like kind of a little bit of a nod and a wink about how overprotected New York is if you put all the superheroes that are based in New York.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, no crime ever happens in New York. Look at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do. I mean, are they going to try and geographically shift stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes being a retailer and being on the retailer pages just dampens your enthusiasm for the what ifs and what's happening. And they nitpick a little bit of things. And I've lost that conversation really. And I need to just go back to the fan base and start reading the fan base. I don't know where this is going or what they're going to do geographically. I like that they've isolated it in a college, because it gives you that small town feel of everybody knows everyone, but nobody knows what's going on, and that mystery in it. And I like that, because that means that any one of the characters in there is going to be able to pull a Swiftie on you and you wouldn't have seen it coming. It's almost a little bit like the horrors in small town.
Yeah, I mean, like, I read this and I enjoyed it. I thought it was perfectly readable for me as a 51-year-old man who likes to read comic books, right? But at the same time, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I'd happily have her read it as well.
Yeah.
It's like, there's some violence and things in it, but she's good with that. She watches UFC with me, so that's fine. But
how old is she?
10. She's been watching UFC with me for a long time. I mean, I think it's done. What I'm a long way around of saying is it's probably YA, but it's not YA to the detriment of the product. It's still very readable.
Yeah. And even though, like, Ms. Marvel has kind of been targeted at YA for a very long time, but she's loved and adored by older people, because there's layers to her, and there's a whole lot of family dynamic that's represented. They've updated her outfit as well, and they've got the X-Men logo on it and everything. I love that they went with, they kept the yellow and the purple, and it kind of feels a lot like Hawkeye. I like that she's wearing steel toe capped boots and stuff. I loved that they updated her like that. I thought it was great.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I really did. So Miss Marvel, the New Mutant, Fall of X #1. Definitely, if you're an X-Men fan, if you're a Miss Marvel fan, if you're just a Marvel fan in general, it's definitely worth a read. Pick it up, have a read, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. On to the next book, AWA. I remember Stu saying to me a while ago that AWA was very much putting ideas for TV shows together in comic book form and trying to sell them, right?
Farm.
IP, that's the
farm.
you got me. I couldn't remember the name of the term, but yeah. And this one is a 1 of 6, The Madness. I was just like, oh, this looks interesting. Great cover. Read it, loved it. It's got, I mean, it's issue 1 sets up the story beautifully, but it's going to get ugly from here, Sue.
It had feels of Jennifer Blood, like a kind of a mum suburban woman who's just on a revenge kick. But it didn't start out that way. And it wasn't till like halfway through the comic that I realized that there were superpowers involved. What did you find? Like, did you know from the beginning? Did I miss something?
No, I mean, the opening page, she's flying.
Well, yeah, actually, in the opening page, she's flying. See, I just took that to be her jumping off something, but then going back, there's definitely superpowers.
Yeah, so, but there is a part where her husband actually, without doing an info dump, they kind of discuss her powers. So she's got like 10 different powers she can use, but she can only use one at a time. Yeah. So if she's flying, she can't have super strength. If she's going to be super fast, then she can't be invisible or whatever it happens to be, So she's got powers.
So my struggle with picking this up is Straczynski is very famous for having really solid, amazing ideas and stories and then not sticking the ending. And I think he does that when it's really super long, drawn out things. And this feels like he's going to nail it because it's only 6 parts.
1 of 6.
So, yeah. So I think that so how much can we give away in the reviews? Like, are we...
Well, I think you can give a little bit away here because really, like, if you're going to read this series, if you're going to take our recommendation and go and check out The Madness on AWA, I don't think we're giving too much away because the issue 1 really just sets up the story, right? So you've got this woman who has powers, who is basically like a super thief, effectively, and that's kind of how her and her family have existed. And she decides she's going to do one more job and then get out. Yeah. But the job she does, surprise, surprise, crosses the wrong person. But
so did you know? So the thing that gets me about this is there were so many things that I just like. I'm noticing what they're doing, and it didn't stop me enjoying the story. But so the first thing is, okay, she's Robin Hood, but she's not Robin Hood because she doesn't give to the poor; she keeps for herself. Okay, so we shouldn't like her. Then she targets an oil baron or a sheik, and so. Oh, maybe we can like her because she's robbing from the oil people and the oil people are bad. And then I had to have a giggle about the social commentary that went on in my head about why the hell are they bad? Why do we vilify the oil industry when we all use it? Like, where is this madness coming from? And then I just had to go back into the story. And because it was the oil people that she was stealing the money off, that set up the reason for the whole story to happen to her, to set her on the revenge, because it was an intergovernmental thing. Okay, you can mess around and you can steal from people and we might just arrest you or we might just take you down. But when you do it from the wrong person, then governments are involved and we're going to really viciously take everyone out. And so I really enjoyed it.
And the other thing I enjoyed is, and this is obviously going to play more into it, but he's come up with this whole new cast of characters. So it's not just her and some government agency and some foreign power, but the Council of Justice. They're not superheroes that you would know outside of this book, right? You get introduced to them in the book. But if the Council of Justice, think Justice League, whatever, that kind of thing, but a little bit more grounded, a little bit more real, a bit more politically now.
A little bit more real because they'll take a monetary job from a government to off someone.
There's no shining white knights here, shall we say?
Yeah, like every superhero collection of people, they all have to have a governance, right? They all have to come together and sit around a table and decide how they're going to be as superheroes. And these guys just seem to be in it for the money, which was kind of made her feel even better as a character to like, because look who she's up against.
Yeah, so that's the basis of the story, and it sets it up beautifully. I mean, you said Jennifer Blood. I also got and I know this will come as a surprise, Sue, but I got some Punisher vibes off this.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. I wrote that in my review on it. Punisher.
Because
Punisher and Jennifer Blood and all the anti-heroes, and their quest is for revenge, but they're doing it for the right reasons,
she has nothing to lose. So everybody that's in her firing line is in deep shit, basically.
Yeah.
So no, I enjoyed it. I really did. I want to pick up the rest of that. So The Madness on AWA, J.Michael Straczynski. What else has he done? You mentioned him.
So many brilliant things. He was really controversial because he did a run on Wonder Woman, and that was when they put her in like New York yoga pants and things, and there was just this outcry from dressing Wonder Woman in what looked like a New York yoga outfit. I loved it, actually. I thought she looked really good. And he was involved in Lost, the TV series that was rudderless and ended up nowhere. I do have customers come in and quote all sorts of things that he's been involved in, and they've gone, I just love him, I love him, I love him, but where was the ending? Yeah, but miniseries, and he's done it for AWA, so this is definitely like an IP thing that he's said about. Wouldn't be surprised to see that on Netflix.
And something else actually we should mention, so because one's a Marvel title, one's an AWA title, but both in the comments, one's the front couple of pages, quite deep in Ms. Marvel, in a tribute to John Romita Sr.
Yeah.
And even in the back of the AWA comic for The Madness, Method to the Madness by Aiko, who's the artist here.
Yeah.
Aiko mentions him as well. So I thought that was interesting about inspiring some of the work.
We've had some huge losses in the last couple of years from the comic industry, and it isn't just the art and the writing that we see as customers and collectors. It's actually the influence that they've had in the industry and the impact on other creative people. And I'm seeing a lot of that in a lot of comics. The creators are making the time to put a letter in the back.
Yeah. And, so those are worth getting and worth reading. The Madness is definitely darker. It's probably, wouldn't say issue 1's an R18 type read, but I've got a feeling that that's where it's going to go. Yeah,
I think so too. I mean, it's pretty brutal. I guess we have a lower standard, a lower bar at the moment in society for brutality.
Well, I think there's a scene where there's a massive explosion and you see people eviscerated, so there's just flames and you can see their skeleton still standing there, and I'm like, oh, that reminds me of the Terminator movie. So we've had it for a while.
We've had it. Yeah.
All right, let's move on then. And this is something that I know that you're doing in book club shortly, an image title called Kroma by Lorenzo de Felici. I'd never heard of this, didn't know anything about it, picked it up, read it, and it was, it's not a small book, but I picked it up and read the whole thing in one sitting. And I don't know about you, Sue, but no doubt you'll talk about this in book club. But the underlying theme in this, really, for me, was just about and apologies to anybody that is this way inclined, but what a crock of shit religion is. It's all just about the societal lies and how we just accept them. Is that, okay. Am I on point?
Oh, yeah. So I don't think I'd go so far as to say just religion. I think this was also it was very much a look at how we are manipulated in a society to believe the beliefs of the fearful ones at the top, and so that if we believe and buy into the fear, then that is reality, and the masses will do everything they can to avoid provoking that fear or having it attack them, right? And so color in this world there is a pocket of humanity that have survived, and they've cornered themselves into a dwelling, a castle environment, not just the castle, but with a little bit of lands, but with a wall around them. And they have bred out color. So I don't know if everyone knows, but color is not something that just exists, okay? Color is created in our brains by the way we receive the light waves into our eyes, and the way that the rods and cones in our eyes relate those wavelengths of light into our brain, and then we say, okay, that's blue, or that's red, or that's purple. So I struggled with it as an idea that this apocalyptic world had all this color and beauty and jungle outside the castle, and inside the castle it was all grays and muted. And that was, I just was like, well, you can't do that because it's the way our eyes take it. And then Stu and I had a conversation. He said, okay, well, what they've done is they've changed the way the light is reflected off all the materials in this city. So then I could believe and understand that. But yeah, basically they worshipped a god of color, or who gave color and had rainbows of color. And then some stupid human decided they wanted to create another color and put that in the rainbow. And the god then said no, and started and created an animal that would then hunt humans because of this one human's idiocy of going against the god. So I guess, is that where you got your anti-religion?
Yeah, I think so. Well, not just that, but it's particularly towards the end of the book where you have one character in the book who is very much, I guess, a pontiff, if you like, and dictates this is what we believe and this is why we believe it. And then you find out the whole thing's just been a fabricated lie.
Yes.
Even to the point where there's a character in the book who is pregnant with the child who becomes the daughter of the god, right? Where's that story? Does that sound familiar?
Oh my goodness. It's, yes, exactly. And then to protect the daughter, they make her the object of the beatings and the ritual. And it was quite shocking, eh? He did it quite brutally,
and that's, I mean, like, I grew up Catholic, so
did you?
Yeah, so that's kind of the first place I went like, oh, there we go, that's what that's about.
My dad was a minister.
Oh, there you go.
Here's to us, renouncing religion.
Exactly. Well and truly.
Do you know what it gave me though? Okay, so there are religions, and I have some religious friends, and I absolutely love the sense of community that they have in their congregations, and I love how they interpret the coming together and the loving of each other, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And then I didn't see that. He left that aspect, like there was no sense of community. They were just all living in fear in this colorless castle with no understanding that there was anything else or that anything else could be good. And then they deliberately took the youngsters out into the colorful world to get the gray clay for the walls. And it was an initiation ceremony of sorts to say it's so dangerous out here, and if there's any color, you will be hunted because these creatures hunt the color. And to push the point home, the priest or leader or whatever you want to call him beheads the villager, and it's just this brutal scene of fear-mongering.
Yeah, but what else does it do? It introduces color into the world because all of a sudden there's a big splash of red.
Yeah.
And that stands out. So I thought artistically that was really well done and made a real impact, visual impact, There
were some moments that just I had to stop. Yeah. Yeah, it was just gorgeous artwork. Even in the grey, colourless castle city, there was a beauty in the shapes, and the shading was used really cleverly. And it was also a gorgeous story of not redemption, but of empathy and understanding of the young city boy who comes to the aid of the priest's daughter, and his ability to see past the lies and the fear and to just connect with the human in her. And I thought that was just gorgeous the way that was done.
It was really well done. I enjoyed it. Actually, I thought it was a really cleverly constructed story. And a story, once again, so, not to put too fine a point on it, it's a comic podcast, but it's a story that I don't know that you could have told in another medium immediately, because the art told as much of the story as the dialogue did.
Yeah, I had a customer came in and read it, and they came back and they said to me, it was just a story about racism.
Okay.
And I said, I didn't get that. I got that it was more a story about human expression, stepping out of fear and not following the masses and ideology. And they said for them that they felt it was about racism, and that for them it was the perfect story about racism, the denial of color and the fear that was in that denial of color.
Well, indoctrination of fear in anything, is done. We've seen that. I can see, now you said that, actually, the color thing. I was like, oh, I hadn't put it together like that, because when you read the book, for me, the colors aren't, black and brown and whatever other colors you associate with people's skin tones. They're blues and greens and things like that. So I didn't pick that up. But yeah, that's another way you could take it. And I guess that's what is so good about the book, is that it can mean a lot of different things. It can be interpreted different ways. I mean, I picked the religion thing up. You picked something else up.
Because we all bring our own pedagogy to it, right? We all create our own schematics that we see the world through. And that's created when we're in preschool. That's from the moment we're born till we're about 6 or 7. We've decided how we're going to filter the world. And mine was obviously religion, and yours was obviously a little bit of religion, what we were experiencing. And we're both white, middle-class people in New Zealand. So I don't know, race didn't come into it for me when I was reading this. It was really...
just out of curiosity, the person that brought it up, I mean, were they also white and middle-aged?
Married.
Right,
married.
Okay, there you go. So something that they've probably experienced more than me or you have.
Yeah. And do you know the other thing that it dealt with was this fractured mental state. So once the daughter actually, I'm giving a lot away here, but it happens very quickly in the beginning of the book. So spoiler alert if you don't want to hear. But once she actually gets out and escapes and is in the world of color and is learning how to use color to survive and to camouflage, to do that, she has this fractured mental state because she's seen someone who was helping her die. And she carries them with her. And it was the first person who'd ever been nice and kind to her, and they're gone, but they're alive in her to get her through. And that was a really beautiful exploration of how we connect with people and how they can leave a lasting effect on us even after they're dead. Do you know what I mean? There were just some gorgeous moments in it. Yeah, Have I waffled on that? Sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think you've actually got the point across really well, and you've captured the essence of the book really well. Recommend it. Lorenzo de Felici Kroma, it is called, through Image. Collects the first 4 books.
One and done.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there is no more, but a great read. Really enjoyed it. Okay.
I'm glad you enjoyed that, because it's one of those ones where there was so much going on for me in the social commentary. I didn't know what I was recommending to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and it's one that I would say stick with, because I started reading it and it didn't grab me immediately. But I read it because we were doing the podcast, and it was about a quarter of the way through that it really got its hooks into me.
That's the same as for me. If I'd been reading that in single issues, I would have given up. And I'm so glad I read it in a trade, because the payoff was huge.
Okay, so there you go, Kroma. We have one more book, Sue, and this is a beautiful... Sorry, slightly off mic because I have to go pick it up. A beautiful book. This hardcover edition through IDW of The Last Ronin. It is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle story. I think this came out about 2020. Is that right?
About then it was coming out in singles,
And it's written by Kevin Eastman. Peter Laird, basically, he's got his name on it just because he's the IP, but he actually had very little to do with the creation of it. Tom Waltz and Kevin Eastman really did this book, but it is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle story.
Well, Peter Laird, so Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman, 38 years ago, they had this story, and it was something that they kind of an idea. And so Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird actually thrashed this out, and then Tom Waltz picked up, right? Yeah.
Well, what I was reading was that Peter Laird actually, this was the storyboard. This was done in 1987.
Yeah.
And then they had a falling out, Eastman and Laird. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, but there's a documentary series on Netflix. There's 2 actually. There's one called The Toys That Made Us and one called The Movies That Made Us. And they're half-hour slots at different things, and one of them is on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right?
On Netflix.
On Netflix, yeah. That's the toys that made us one.
The toys that made us.
Yeah, and it was through that Eastman and Laird reconnected, because they had a massive falling out, and that's how The Last Ronin happened. because otherwise it wouldn't have happened. They reconnected and made up after years after a massive bust up.
That's so cool, because this is brilliant. I loved it.
So
and
good.
I'm so glad that I mean, okay, have you read much Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before?
I read the first couple of books back in the day because our mutual friend Craig Peterson used to collect them, and we played a role-playing game version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well back in the day. But then, it got kidified, and at the time it got kidified, I was a teenager, and I'm like, I want this. I want the blood and the gore and the 2000 AD version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles type thing, So I kind of left it. I didn't really go anywhere near it. But I picked up, IDW did a reprint of the first book not about 2 years ago, and I picked up a copy of that. And fantastic. And like you say, I mean, The Last Ronin, it's very Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, yes, but it's the dark origin, not the Saturday morning cartoon you watched as a 10-year-old.
This is definitely not a kid's.
Yeah.
This is darker.
This could be Wolverine.
Yeah.
So it's got that feel to it.
So the story is, okay, so it's The Last Ronin. So you know that you're dealing with a story where all but one of the Ninja Turtles have been killed. And so it is just one turtle, and there's been a final war with the Foot Clan, right, who are their nemesis. And this has been a feud that's been going on for centuries. And by the way, you don't need to have read anything Turtle before ever. You can pick this up and just know.
Yeah.
And the odd person in it, you might think, they sound like they might be a little bit more important. There might have been a history. You can just Google that. You don't need to read anything before. So Last Ronin, the opening scenes, he's coming in and he's doing a revenge gig on the Foot Clan, and it's a solo revenge thing, but he is carrying with him these grief hallucinations of his family, the other turtles. And it is such an incredible, it's heavily dark and emotional, this grief that goes with him through the entire comic. But it's so cathartic to watch this as well. And it kind of feels like it's giving you closure on him being alone. And he's even sometimes having not arguments, but he's not agreeing with what these hallucinations are saying or anything. And then there's moments where the hallucinations prompt him to actually get out of a situation or be in a situation. And so it's him up against the Hiroto, that the master of the Foot Clan. And he's only the master of the Foot Clan because in the war that happened between the Turtles and the Foot Clan, his mother got put into a coma. So you've got a turtle coming in to avenge the death of the family because of this feud, and then you've got Hiroto coming in because he's been placed with mother issues and pushed into the leadership of the clan before he was ready, before he wanted it. And so he's got his mum issues, and the Ronin's got the death issues, and it's like this clash of, what are you guys doing? Why are you carrying this feud on? And then you see the wider picture. The Foot Clan have abused their power, and New York's under this state of siege, and everybody's operating under fear.
I did love. So I don't want to jump in because you're on a
go
roll.
on, jump in. No, stop.
No. Because you're right. He's channeling, in a way, the personalities of his brothers, right? And at one point, he steals a motorbike. This is near the beginning, so I'm not giving too much away. He steals a motorbike to try and infiltrate. This is a fortress New York City, all right? So think fortress New York City, motorbike, runs into a whole bunch of trouble, and one of the brothers said, maybe you should have stolen a glider instead, Snake Plissken. It's because it's got a very Escape from New York kind of vibe as well, doesn't it? And I love that.
Yeah, it's so cleverly scripted. The pacing of it is just perfect. And then the revelation of the characters as they go through. So April is in there and she has aged. She is war-torn and she is resisting the Foot Clan's takeover of the city. And there is her daughter is there, and she has trained with the Turtles before, so she's a familiar character. But
she's taken on a different role in this as well. And so Michelangelo comes into this revenge and he ends up being brought down into the sewer where his family had lived, and they're all, the rebellion in there. And it was like this self-imposed exile that he put on himself, where he ended up almost in a suicide mission, was so raw and kept him from knowing so much of what was going on. And it was just gorgeous in how they explored that and how they did those flashback scenes with a sepia color, with a sepia tone, so you knew without any words, you knew where you were in the memory or the now. And it was just so cleverly put together.
Yeah, and like you say, you knew where you were, but you also knew when you were. You know, like it was very clear that it was, hey, here we are, we're back. You know, this is a flashback. Beautifully drawn as well, like the art style.
Oh, just gorgeous.
Yeah, it holds in there and it holds up. It's really cool. And like I said, you know, I think this apparently, because of rights issues and things, this isn't technically in the canon of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
No, it was out of it completely.
Yeah, but it's written by the guys that wrote the whole thing originally, and it's superb. I mean, you know, the last Ronin could be, as I said, Wolverine. It could be Batman in a dark Batman kind of style.
Oh my God! Okay, can I just say? Okay, so I mean, give me a utility belt any day. This is a hangover from when I used to watch MacGyver with my dad. Okay, it was one of his shows, and MacGyver didn't bloody have a utility belt, and so he used to shove duct tape down his pockets and pocket knives in his pocket. He had bulging pockets, and it was just ridiculous to me, being an enclosure schematic that I operate on. He should have had a bloody bag, is what I thought. But no, utility belt would have been better. And the opening pages of this, with Michelangelo's just got this incredible utility belt, and I just thought Batman would crave that. And I loved it. Just the whole aesthetic of what was going on here. It was all out war.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I quite liked about it, is that he's carrying the weapons of all his brothers. Because you know, the brothers had nunchucks, one had a katana, one, you know, etc. But he's got all of them because he's fighting this for his brothers, so he's got all of the weapons. And I thought that was really, really cool too. So the last Ronin, it's a great read.
Well, what about all the tech that was introduced as well? Because like the Hiroto clan, okay, the Foot clan, they've come up with all this technology to guard their empire and to subjugate everybody within the city. So they came up with this term of, what was it, synthetic ninja. And I was like, oh, ha ha ha. And then the next scene was this ninja's exoskeleton being broken apart, and I was just like, oh my God, I want to vomit.
There's a person in there.
Yeah, it was this synthetic but ninja, but it was a massive organic. Oh God, yeah. It was not for kids.
There you go. See, Stu, there's a Bishop flashback for you. We'll say that's a Bishop flashback for you, Stu. There's a bit of sci-fi in there for you.
Yeah, sci-fi. Well, yeah, because there was all the tech, because there was two characters that were in this that were from previous stories of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and one of them is the alien that put himself into the android body, and all that's left of him is the head. Oh shit, what was his name?
Professor.
Professor Honeycott.
Yeah, Professor Honeycott. There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And you didn't need to know that before you read the story at all, either.
No, not at all.
Did you know? So when this came out in the hardcover, we were bringing it. We bought 5 in them, so I could see how it goes, because so many of our customers had done it in the single issues, and people were flocking in to get it in the single issues. So we bought the 5 in. Oh my God, they were gone on the same day. So I thought, okay, well, I'll bring 10 in. And we bought 10 in, and they were gone in that week. And I never got a chance to read it. And then we kept restocking. We finally just bought in a ton of these things so that you and I could do a podcast and we'd have them for everybody. And it's because there's going to be a game. Did you know that? A game based on this comic.
I had read that, and I wonder whether or not there's going to be a movie treatment, because who's written the intro for this and who's given it the big blurb is Robert Rodriguez said, riveting from start to finish, is splashed on the front, and he's written a 2-page intro letter for it as well, which is great.
Yeah. But you know, so one of my customers went and saw the latest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. It's the animated one, which I was really looking forward to seeing, because I loved the Spider-Verse animation, and it felt like this was going to be very similar. And they said it's not an adult movie.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just like, I'll still go and see it, but I just wanted to see something more like this.
Because I didn't think, having seen the trailer for that, the animation didn't look particularly kid-friendly.
No.
Like it was quite dark, some of the animation, and I thought,
Yeah.
oh, this looks like it might actually be maybe more pitched at sort of a teenage, like late teen, early 20 audience kind of thing. But
yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because this last Ronin is so multi-layered and there's so many different things going on, and it is, I'd say, high concept.
Yeah, high concept. And like I said, if you're a fan of Wolverine, or if you're a fan of the darker Batman stuff, or whatever, then the last Ronin, you really enjoy it, I think, because it's got those vibes big time. Yeah,
it was just brilliant.
So there you go. That is Heroes for Sale, podcast number 55.
Thank you, Riccardo.
No worries, Sue. It's fantastic. Good to get another one under our belts, and hopefully Stu enjoys this one a little bit more than he did the last one.